Core Design's early success on the Atari ST, 1988 to 1993, coming up next. Core Design emerged as a prominent British video game developer in 1988, founded by a team of experienced individuals who had previously worked at Gremlin Graphics. While the company later achieved the global recognition it deserved for groundbreaking titles such as Tomb Raider, their early work laid the foundation for their future success. During the late 80s and early 90s, the Atari ST held a significant position in the home computer market in the UK and Europe. Known for its relatively affordable price and versatile capabilities, the 16-bit machine found popularity among gamers, musicians, and those interested in desktop publishing. Core Design's journey began in Derby in the United Kingdom in May 1988, which places the company within a thriving UK game development scene of the time. Many of its founding members had previously honed their skills at Gremlin Graphics, a more established entity in the industry. This prior experience equipped them with valuable industry knowledge and technical experience, influencing their early projects and choice of the Atari ST as their primary 16-bit platform. Initially operating under the name Megabyte, they underwent a rebranding in 1988, adopting the name Core Design, in an effort to establish a distinct identity within the competitive gaming market. Before venturing into self-publishing, Core Design engaged in various products, including converting games for other publishers like Activision on titles such as Action Fighter and Dynamite Ducks, and Gremlin Graphics, including Skids and Impossible. This initial phase of working on conversions for other publishers provided crucial experience with the Atari ST hardware and software, allowing the team to build a portfolio and achieve financial stability before releasing their own titles. Terry Lloyd, a key artist and game designer at Core Design, confirmed his early work in an interview with Atari Legend, noting that Jeremy Heath Smith's industry connections were instrumental in securing these initial opportunities. The first ST game that Core Design was involved with was Action Fighter, released in 1989. While developed by Core Design for the ST, it was published by Firebird. Action Fighter is an overhead vehicular combat game that originated as a Sega arcade title in 1986, highlighting Core Design's early experience in porting arcade games to home computers. Contemporary reviews for the ST version were mixed. ST Action gave it scores of 57% in November 1989 and 60% in October 1993. CV&G rated it 71% in December 1989, while the Games Machine gave it 56% the same month. Atari ST User offered it a score of 5 out of 10 in 1990. Later in 1989, Core Design developed Switchblade, which was published by Gremlin Graphics for the Atari ST in December. This continued the trend of Core Design developing for other publishers on the ST, building on their significant relationship with Gremlin Graphics. Switchblade is a side-scrolling action platformer. Contemporary reviews are somewhat mixed. The One magazine was quite impressed, giving it 88% and calling it brilliant. Zero magazine rated it 86%. However, Ace gave it a score of 51, with German magazines being less enthusiastic and giving it ratings like 39%. In 1990, Core Design developed Axel's Magic Hammer, which was also published by Gremlin Graphics, likely in 1989 or 1990, for both the Amiga and Atari ST. Terry Lloyd mentioned that Axel's Magic Hammer was inspired by games like Alex Kidd and Mario and was developed as a spare time project with Andy Green. The game is a platformer where the player controls Axel, who wields a magic hammer. Contemporary reviews for the ST version show a variety of scores. CV&G 83%, the One 80%, ST Format with two different scores of 76 and 68, the German magazines giving it something like 33 like usual. A more recent review from Atari Crypt described it as an enjoyable and addictive platformer, giving it 80%. Terry Lloyd also noted that the Atari ST offered significant advantages over 8-bit systems when they designed this game. It helped power their graphical ambitions, as Axel's Magic Hammer was simply a passion project inspired by console games. Torvak the Warrior, released in 1990, marks a significant point as it's both developed and published by Core Design for the Atari ST. This transition to self-publishing indicates a growing independence for the company. Torvak the Warrior is a hack-and-slash platform game where players control Torvak, the Barbarian. Contemporary reviews were generally positive. ST Format gave it 70%, noted the weapon speed was annoying. Atari Crypt, though, now described it as a good and fun scrolling platform beat-em-up, praising its scrolling and graphics, and gave it an 82%. Also in 1990, Core Design published Corporation, though it was developed by Dementia. This was Core Design's first published game, indicating that they wanted to expand beyond just development and publishing their own developed games. Corporation is a first-person shooter known as Cybercop in the US and is considered one of the earliest examples of the genre. Both ST Action and ST Format gave it review scores in the 80s. Surprisingly, ST Format also seemed to rate it as one of the most disappointing games of the year. It's quite strange. Monty Python's Flying Circus, the computer game, is up next. It was developed by Core Design and published by Virgin in 1990 for the ST and other platforms. This game is a scrolling shoot-'em-up based on the popular TV series, released in December 1990. Contemporary reviews were generally positive. ST Format gave it 84, The One 85, ST User gave it 75%, CV&G gave it 80, Ace, though, gave it 65, and Power Play gave it 43. A user on GameFAQs awarded it a perfect 10 out of 10, calling it an energetic crowd pleaser. Impossible, a platform game and the sixth in the Monty Mole series, was developed by Core Design and published by Gremlin Graphics in 1990 for the Atari ST. Contemporary reviews were not very enthusiastic. CV&G gave it 70%, noting that it lacked anything special to make it stand out. The One simply described it as average. I kind of like it more than they did, but I understand what they're saying. Very telling of the way that winners rewrite history is the way Core's Rick Dangerous, released first on the ST by Firebird as its primary platform in 1989, is heralded as an Amiga classic when it sold many more copies on the ST in its primary release, before the budget title shot up the Amiga charts years later. It's one of Simon Phipps' first games, and while it has Euro platformer written all over it, it's so charming and cool it makes up for the blind jumps and rote memorization needed to succeed. Rick Dangerous 2, on the other hand, the sequel, was developed by Core Design and published by Microprose in 1990 for the Atari ST. The ST version, released in January 1990, had very good contemporary reviews. The One rated it 90%, Zero gave it 84%. On Moby Games, though, the average rating is 3.5 out of 5. with one user criticizing the trial and error gameplay and clunky controls. Now this I agree with. By this time, Rick Dangerous 2 should have eliminated much of its Euro gameplay and should have been much more friendly to the user. Carve Up, a platform puzzle game where players control a car that paints platforms, was developed and published by Core Design in 1990 for the Atari ST and other platforms. It was inspired by Jaleco's arcade game City Connection. Contemporary reviews were very positive. The One awarded it 90%, calling it tremendously fun. ST Format gave it 79%, but called it eminently playable and outstandingly absorbing. Amiga Computing, obviously for the Amiga platform, rated it 83% and found it refreshing. In 1991, Core Design finally published their first vertical flying shooter in Frenetic for the Atari ST, but reviews were mixed. The One rated it 71%, while Games X rated it 80%. Atari Crypt described it as an average shoot 'em up. Personally, I like this one more than most of the reviews, and find it to be one of my favorite Atari ST vertical shooters. Chuck Rock, a side-scrolling platform game featuring a caveman, was developed and published by Core Design in 1991 for the ST and many other platforms. Contemporary reviews were very positive. The One and ST User both rated it 91%, and GamesX awarded it a perfect 100%. ST Graveyard in recent years gave it a 3.75 out of 5, noting that it lacked excitement. The average Moby Games magazine review score for the Atari ST is 82%. 1991 also saw the release of the Gremlin-published core-developed follow-up to Switchblade, Switchblade 2, a game I find much more fun than the original and closer to a console game, and it shows improved game mechanics that the same team would employ later in games like Wolfchild and beyond. Thunderhawk AH-73M is a big departure. It's an action simulation helicopter game and the first in the Thunderhawk series, which was published by Core Design in 1991 for the Atari ST and other platforms. The developer is unknown, but it looks to have been designed and programmed by Mark Avery and Mark Price, their only ST game credits. They probably sent it to Core Design to be published, where the internal team made adjustments to release the game. Contemporary reviews were positive. The One rated it 87%, and user ratings on Atari Mania gave it 8.1 out of 10. Every Game Going described it as the best helicopter sim on the Atari ST. Warzone, released in 1991, brings them back to their arcade game roots. It's a top-down scrolling action game both developed and published by Core. The ST version was released in January of 1991. Reviews were generally positive. The One rated it 86%, while Atari ST User gave it 78%, noting that it was unoriginal. The average score on Moby Games for the Amiga version is 77%. Note that another game with the same name was released by Prism Leisure. It's a horizontal scrolling vertical shooter, but it's definitely not the same game. In 1992, Core also published Hemdall, an action role-playing game set in Norse mythology, developed by Eighth Day. This shows them really reaching out and trying to diversify into other types of games. The ST version was released in 1992. Reviews showed a range of opinions. Ace Magazine gave it a score of 50%. Every Game Going describes it as an engrossing role-playing game. A review of the Mega CD version on the Sega 16 criticizes graphics and controls. I find Hemdall difficult to get into and would need more time with it to really give it any positive or negative marks. Doodlebug, a colorful four-way scrolling platformer, was published by Core Design in 1992 for the ST. It was developed by Mutation Software. ST Review described it as great fun to play. Atari Legend rates it 4.5 out of 5, calling it a hidden gem. In a review we published last year, we gave it 83.8%, considering it another gem from Core. Adrian Cummings, the developer behind Doodlebug, was primarily an Amiga developer. He assisted programmer Bob Brooks in figuring out a way to make a very colorful ST version, keeping a decent frame rate. This is a colorful technical masterpiece for plain old ST, shown here on the ST platform that developers should have been targeting at the time, the Mega STE. Wolfchild is a platform game where the protagonist transforms into a wolf, and was published by Core Design in February 1992 for the Atari ST and many other platforms. The developers listed as unknown, though Simon Phipps was definitely involved in its development. A review on GameFAQs for the Atari ST was pretty lukewarm, stating it's not bad, but not very good either. But a review for the NES version on ClassicGame.net, similarly unenthusiastic. Several unreleased or prototype games for the Atari ST were also associated with Core Design during this period. Chuck Rock 2, Son of Chuck Rock, was mentioned as unreleased for the Atari ST, despite a preview in ST Review magazine suggesting a September 1992 release. However, Core Design reportedly never started development on the ST version, focusing on the Sega platforms instead. Dark Mirror was listed as preview MIA for the Atari ST on Atari Mania, eventually being released only on the Amiga in 1994 after development delays. A prototype of Dominion, a brain puzzle game, exists from August 1992, shown here. Developed by Chris Stringley, this prototype lacks music. Jaguar XJ220, a racing game released on the Amiga and Mega CD, has a work-in-progress version for the Atari ST, shown here from Atari Mania. It was ultimately cancelled in 1992 to focus on the Amiga version of Darkmere. This development demo from 1992 was made available in 2009. Premier, an arcade platformer released on the Amiga and CD32, is listed as unreleased for the Atari ST on Atari Mania, with some sources suggesting it was never planned for the platform, despite a preview in ST Review. Finally, Retro was released as a 3D futuristic sports title for both the Amiga and Atari ST, inspired by Speedball 2, but it was eventually cancelled. Core Design's contribution to the Atari ST gaming landscape was very notable, and the Atari ST's contribution back to Core Design in the early years of its development is notable just the same. During this time, they developed a mix of games for other publishers and a growing number of self-published titles. The company explored a variety of genres on the platform, including platformers, action games, shoot-'em-ups, simulations, and Incorporation published one of the earliest first-person shooters on the platform, or any 16-bit platform. The critical reception of their ST games was varied, with titles like Chuck Rock and Carve Up receiving high praise, with others like Impossible and Wolfchild garnering more moderate responses. The existence of several unreleased projects demonstrates the company's ambition, but also the dynamic nature of game development during this period. Ultimately, while Core Design is best remembered for their later successes, their work on the Atari ST in the late 80s and 90s played a crucial role in their evolution as a significant force in the British video game industry.
We were children of the Silicon Revolution, an X generation conscripted to fight the console and home computer wars. A product of an analog 70s childhood, we came of digital age in the 80s, believing we could affect the world 8 bits at a time. Armed with joysticks, full-stroke keyboards, Jolt Cola, and MTV haircuts, we proceeded into the vertical blank. There, we stayed up late at night, devising incantations from D&D rulebooks and beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. Video games were the match, and programming was the fuse, as the infinite possibilities of the digital world exploded into the internet age to come. We are Generation Atari.
Into the vertical blank.